Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm, where we explore the consistency of language that we have proven in this series, pointing out empirical evidence and drawing conclusions and logical inference to whatever we can. So last episode we finished up connecting, showing that medium is the middle of minimum and maximum, and it's logically consistent. Minimum, medium, maximum. We asked the question, what is matter? Now let's ask the question, what is medium? What is a medium? Right? In physics, physical ontology, you always use the concept or the intuition that something is moving through something else. Right? And now, even pretty much with Einstein, you get the intuition that the shape, the environment is mass itself, which is true. We've proven that. But so now you have to conceptually understand what that means. And so remember, you start with vibration. You don't really have the concept of space yet, you don't have the concept of form yet. Right? That vibration stabilizes into energy. And that's the phase shift from R1 to R2. Now you have energy. And so that energy stabilizes, it condenses into mass. And so that mass, right, that's E equals mc squared. That's all I just said right there. And then so when you have your discrete objects such as me, and then I move, I'm independent of the camera, but there's air molecules in between us. So when I move, I push the air molecules push into the camera, it registers my voice, blah, blah, blah. And so we're connected through the pressure gradient that exchanges momentum. And so when you think about the condensation, when energy going into mass forming at the very beginning, and again, that's the so-called Big Bang, the mass internalizes charge, that charge repulses, and now view like a pool cue. You have a bunch of pool balls, and they all get charged all of a sudden. They're going to push outward. They're going to repel one another because like poles repulse. But they're bounded, and the boundary of that, like the pool, the little triangle thing that you have to rack the pool balls, that is also mass, right? So it's not really an analogy, and it's that bounding, and now it is a triangle just like the pool cue, so you're always having this imbalance of what vector has more force pushing which way, so you always have movement, or you have vibration. So the entirety of the universe is vibrating, and in each separate section of the universe, you can have movement. And that's really just the Harry-Ball theorem once again. Right? If you have a vector field, there always has to be a point where it's zero, and always have to have a point where you're approaching infinity. And so if you're on the surface of the Earth, and you don't have any, there's always a point where there is no wind. And there's always a point where there's maximum wind. And so now we're trying to get, again, the interesting things happen in the middle, the medium, and mass is the medium. And so when you have that mass condensing and that movement, that vibration is sent out as radiation. And so in the same way we use the word force has an application in physical ontology, light is a specific case of radiation. So vibration, radiation. Radiation contains light. So that's what we needed to kind of sort out there. Just logically, linguistically, we use the word radiation, which holistically encompasses light. But that radiation is that the mass moving and pushing another thing with mass, so it's all connected through that pressure gradient. In the same way, temperature is an emergent property of a group of discrete things moving and not one individual particle. And so momentum has the same sort of holistic nature as temperature. But now again, we've connected medium, right? Now in mathematics, you have mean, which is the average of something, the median, which is the middle of something, and the mode, which is the most of something. And so true story, used to tell one of my cousins that I've never learned anything in mathematics past mean, median, and mode. It's true, right? So now we're at median, the middle, medium, the middle. Medium physics, median math. But now remember, flip back to whatever, again, if you're just watching this episode, this derivation has been going on for 5 years now, 6 years now, whatever. But go back, what's the last time I've updated the fundamental theorem of logic? What is the fundamental theorem of logic? When people don't know what to say, they say And it's true, profoundly empirical. Go listen to anybody talk in any context. So I was at the conference the other day, and it's not insulting. You just say the word or the sound when you don't know what to say. Whether you're just switching logic, Not that you don't have the intuition to talk about something, but if you're talking about the French language for a long time, then you go back to Spanish or go to Russian or Cyrillic, that's an alphabet. But the point being is if you switch and you feel that switching in your brain. And so when you say you either straight up don't know what you're saying or you're just, recalibrating to talk about a different ontology. And so we've now connected minimum, medium, maximum, and you say when you don't know what you're saying. So what is at the end of a word? Very clearly, into physical and mathematical ontology, what is it doing? And I think it keeps it open. Again, I keep saying this word open, or entropic, or all black bodies radiate, but just meaning information is continually exchanged. Dimensionality 3 is not stabilized, it is open. Meaning I can have a discrete object that changes its mass, and it can change into energy, and that energy can be restabilized, right? That is where you get your conservation laws of nothing can be created or destroyed. It just changes form. But we've connected medium and median. Very fundamental from physical ontology and mathematical ontology. Matter is the medium of momentum, ? It's my own writing. Again, just focusing on what is the word matter. Momentum is the medium of force. Again, we've just discussed that force is pressure. You don't want to break down. Again, force has its application, light has its application, but when you're talking in complete generality, radiation and pressure are the ones you want to use. Space is a medium. Again, we define matter and mass very rigorously. Space isn't really defined, it's the absence of matter, and all information is transmitted on the tension path. Right? My momentum that I'm hitting through the floor, that might shake the camera if you can feel it or not, but it's not going in a straight line, it's going through the floor, up the legs of the tripod to the camera stabilizer inside the camera. So it's not going straight to the thing, and then you get the concept of a geodesic. What is a straight line? There isn't really a straight line, and so that's already formalized as a geodesic, just as the parkour, the shortest distance between 2 points, but you're not on a flat surface, so how do you categorize that? And they call it a geodesic. But also, right, what is middle? Right, so now that's the word we're really focusing on. We've really isolated when we're doing our syllogism, A equals B, B equals C, so A equals C. Middle is kind of the word. But now, again, we have to encapsulate all slang as well. Well, what is middle? Well, what is mid? Right, if you're going to your drug dealer and you're buying mid-grade weed, are you buying a minimum or a maximum? You're buying something in the middle, hence literally the term mid. And so, but that's a very popular slang right now today. And that one, we used Riz last time, but this one, mid's been around for a while. Again, for reference, anyone watching, I'm 32. But it's just, again, you see the logic manifest itself through slang. Both is specific to 2. So again, we very clearly, again, there's this fundamental stability of 2. You reduce a word down to a base, it can then condenses into one unique word. And so and then 2 is stabilized, meaning we can't go back there. You're never going to have a physical state where there's no more mass, or you can't destroy mass anymore. It was created, but it can't be destroyed. You lived, you're going to die, but your impact's not going away completely. And so we have linguistical evidence. The word both is exclusive to 2. But you don't have, right, you have the word third and fourth, and you have words for numbers, cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers, which we've already covered, but there's no equivalent to the word both for 3, 4, or anything besides 2. And so, and I don't even think there's an equivalent for first, right? First or second, 1, 2, both, mono, but that's a prefix. And so there's a complete solidified word that represents 2. But now that's a sound. Remember, it's preserving the sound. And so how many words do we have that are uniquely the same sound as 2? Well, we have 3, right? 2 at, 2 the number, and 2 also. And so again, some sort of solidifying this. 3 is the base, or 2 is the base that's stabilized, 3 is the interacting dynamic. The difference of 3 and 5 is 2. The difference of 5 and 7 is 2. The only difference of prime numbers is 2. We have 3 iterations of the sound 2 logically, meaning 2, 2, and 2. We just said what's going on. But all of these are huge jumps intuitively, like on a personal level. It's just like all of this stuff is falling into place. Our big spiral getting tighter and tighter and tighter until we get our axiom. But two, because then we have like words like dichotomy, dimension, right? That di, that prefix of meaning two, is very apparent and solidified in words. But we also kind of have ones for other magnitudes, right? You have trilogy or a trimester. You have a quadricept, your quads. So you do have like prefixes for numbers greater than two, but that's the last stabilized dynamic. And so like you have quintillion, quadricept, but they're not really fundamental. And what do I mean by fundamental? It's not stabilized. That is the word verbiage you would use. It hasn't been solidified. Again, the past is definite. There was no physical systems you've ever interacted with, just two-dimensional components. Right? Everything is always touching. You've only existed in an environment with mass. But this is obviously getting longer than I expected. That's the whole point, is I prove something and then it opens up like 14 more things, a lot more than 14, but like a lot more things. There's always more questions to ask once you answer something. There's always more true statements than you can prove. There's always more inconclusive statements than there are true statements that you can't prove. There's always infinitely many more wrong statements than all of the other things combined. And so it's not going to stop even a little bit. But it just takes forever to get to an axiom. But life is the universe's random access memory. Literally, right? Remember, way back, and we're circling the logic that I have demonstrated on this channel, literally. And so I said, right, what is the purpose of life? The purpose is memory, to increase efficiency, very poignantly. I forget exactly what episode. But that is the point, right? Like life, to be more efficient, you have to map the environment. And so we can make fundamental choices. That rock can't choose to go explore the Hocking Hills in Ohio. I can, and I will. Check out Brad's brief for nature content. But it literally is. And so like the words, right? If you have a RAM, analogy to, or not even an analogy, an extension of the metaphorical application of what a computer is. We are biological computers. And so like the words, like the words that I'm using, the words that, like, so forcing functions, they use that terminology, I don't even really know what it means, but human beings and technology is forcing the language people use. We have technology, we see how people behave, every single one of us gets immediate updates on how everybody else behaves immediately on our cell phones. And so behavior is normalizing, all of it. Right and wrong doesn't mean anything, just how does other people behave, and it's based on human experience, which is uniform. And so the words that people use to describe those experiences are condensing. In the same way you grade someone's paper, peer review in English class, and you help them revise their paper, that is what language is doing in its entirety. And so life is the random access memory, storing the words to transmit the logic that is relevant to survive, and then to progress into technology or to more of the privilege, right? Like a deer running in the woods is not thinking about a mathematical equation, nor is a human being in the woods trying to survive. And so once you have that privilege of being able to survive, then you begin to want to reproduce, and then you want to be able to think. And so most people seem to forget of our true biological nature because they are so privileged. All right, that's it for this episode. Moving on to the next.